Two adapters were trying to catch a song, while a guest suddenly dropped them like dumplings. It wasn't because of some random act that the Fine Sky restaurant was smashed into a hellscape. The chef danced the tango with a burning pan and accidentally lit a woman passing by on fire. She was like an Olympic torchbearer. Fires were set everywhere, and the entire restaurant was engulfed in flames. Shi Ingxing quickly called everyone to take the emergency exit. Unexpectedly, the 494-foot-high load-bearing column had been disconnected. All the guests squeezed into the elevator casters and groaned under the weight. A bald old man pushed aside the blonde woman and tried his best to squeeze towards the elevator. Unexpectedly, the big caster frame that got stuck in the doorway fell down, and the old man was beaten into a pulp. The blonde woman just now suddenly found that the wine bottle on the stage slowly slid to her feet, which meant that the building was tilting. As expected, the next second the terrace began to topple. The blonde woman hurriedly climbed to the bathroom door. Although she wanted to help the people below, it was too late. She saw the chandelier on the platform swaying, and a coin slipped quietly and fell on the piano below. You must not have imagined that this sky building weighing more than 9,000 tons collapsed because of a coin in the hands of a naughty child. Let's go back in time to a few hours ago. The blonde woman Iris and her lover Campbell crossed the train track. Come to attend the opening ceremony of this sky restaurant. I heard that the restaurant was built 5 months earlier than planned because it looks very spectacular. Because there were countless people coming inexplicably just after the opening. A naughty kid ran around looking for coins in the old wishing fountain when the parents were not paying attention. The staff quickly restrained themselves when they saw it. He also said that doing so would bring ill will. For some reason, Iris always felt very uneasy after seeing this scene. When he arrived at the lobby, he found that the elevator was full of people. Iris really didn't want to force their way in, but the elevator attendant had to wave them in and manually close the door that couldn't be closed tightly. During the ascent, Iris stared at the trembling floor under his feet, nervously clutching his palms. The naughty kid fishing for coins even deliberately stomped on the floor. After scaring Iris, who was already scared, she ran into the elevator and arrived at the top floor safely. Campbell quickly reported his name and asked the registrar to find a seat for them. The friend who helped them with the booking had already resigned. The two now had no reservation and could only wait awkwardly aside. It was Alice who reacted and took Campbell to the bar next to her. However, she quickly found an excuse to go to the bathroom because of her fear of heights. At this time, the adapter opened the champagne cork and hit the crystal chandelier above her head. The sharp decoration hit the glass floor and created a small bead-like crack. Unfortunately, the dancing crowd did not notice that Iris ran out of the bathroom door holding her stomach. The singer noticed her movements. It was obvious at a glance that the girl was pregnant, but Iris hadn't told her boyfriend yet because he wasn't sure yet. Just then Campbell came over. He took Iris with him to go sightseeing on the terrace. The naughty child was lying on the side throwing coins on the ground, which made the adaptation student extremely irritated. However, this episode did not affect Campbell. He took out the ring, knelt down on one knee, and finally proposed to Iris. This move also dispelled the latter's hesitation. Iris told Campbell the news of her pregnancy. The two were happily preparing to go back to the restaurant to celebrate. Unexpectedly, they saw the naughty child sitting on his waist. The coin he threw out accidentally got stuck in the exhaust fan of the restaurant. At this time, the atmosphere in the hall was high. Countless people danced together, causing the small crack to get bigger and bigger. The weighing pillar began to be overwhelmed. In addition, the disconnected exhaust fan also cut the pipe. The combination of various unexpected circumstances gradually pushed the restaurant to the gate of hell. The unlucky Campbell had fallen to his death. As for the naughty child, he was hit by the piano as soon as he ran downstairs, and the coin fell back into the wishing fountain. He witnessed this terrible disaster. Iris was feeling desperate when he suddenly found the son of the backup singer emerging from the rubble. He quickly picked up the little boy and ran away. Unexpectedly, the restaurant collapsed, and Iris hung on the stone wall in a thrilling way. No one thought that what saved her life was the too small wedding ring. However, the flesh on her hand quickly fell off the bone. Iris hit the ground hard, and the college student Ani woke up from the classroom instantly. What the teacher said about the classroom was so scary that it actually caused her to have such a terrible nightmare. For some reason, Ani kept repeating this dream in the next few days. She told her roommate that the person named Iris and her grandma were in love. But the problem was that Ani had never met her grandma and her parents and never mentioned it. So he was not sure whether his grandma was dead or alive and whether Iris in the dream was the same person. His roommate said that you can go home and investigate and solve this problem as soon as possible, or else you should die in your dream. Otherwise, if you wake me up again, I will kill you with my own hands. You are such a good roommate from the United States. Anyway, Ani took her roommate's advice and planned to go home for a while. If this nightmare continues, it will definitely affect Ani's grades and cause her to lose her scholarship. However, when Ani was 10 years old, her mother ran away from home and took away everything about her grandmother. So she planned to go to her uncle's house to look for them. They were so happy when they first met. But when Ani mentioned her grandmother, her uncle's expression changed and he refused to say anything. Ani had no choice but to confess. Recently, he always dreamed about a restaurant called Tianjin 50 years ago. The uncle quickly looked at his wife, and knew at a glance that they must have heard of Tianjing, so she kept chasing the uncle to ask. My uncle had to tell Ani that Iris had completely collapsed since our father passed away. He wouldn't let your mother and I go to school and locked us in the house. Iris had been worried that the two children would die in various horrible ways. Finally, things got so bad that the government had to step in and deprive Iris of her custody rights. However, the crazy woman did not give up and tracked down the foster families of the two children every week. In short, this situation lasted for decades. Even after my uncle and mother had their own child, Iris continued to send those terrible letters. Various reports and photos of different corpses forced the uncle and uncle to move. Only then could they avoid Iris harassment. The uncle warned Ani not to mention this woman again. She will only bring us misfortune. Ani did not give up easily but pestered her aunt to get those harassing letters. Among them were photos of Iris when she was young. She was indeed the blonde woman in the patio restaurant. And immediately followed the address on the envelope and came to a deep mountain and old forest. Iris lived in a dilapidated villa. There were many tenants around the house, which looked very strange, and blew herself up to the surveillance camera. Iris Wenyan asked her to take out everything in her pockets. Ani had no choice but to obey her instructions and successfully entered Iris' territory. The scene behind the gate could almost be described as baring her teeth and claws. Even the White House did not have so many protective measures, and Iris in the house did not let down her guard in front of her niece, but she was still very concerned about her daughter Darlene's condition, and awkwardly told Iris that she left when I was 10 years old, so I really don't know Darlene's current situation. Then Ani told her grandma about her dream and wanted to know what was going on. Who knew that grandma said it was not just your dream, but my premonition. The scene turned back to the patio restaurant 50 years ago. Iris was about to accept Campbell's proposal, but at that moment he saw the future. She ignored her nervous boyfriend and rushed forward to snatch the coins from the naughty boy's hand. Then Iris rushed into the restaurant and covered the pan in the chef's hand. She pushed aside the crowd. He snatched the singer's microphone and warned everyone to leave the dance floor immediately. The glass was about to shatter. Hearing the words around him, he had time to save his feet. That night, Iris snatched many lives from the hands of the god of death that should have died. After the patio restaurant was demolished, Iris thought that things would calm down. However, the god of death did not like others to interfere with his plans, so over the years, he continued to kill everyone present that night. This also includes Iris' husband Campbell, who has stayed in seclusion for these years just to learn how to meet the arrival of death and avoid any possibility of death. However, Iris was diagnosed with cancer 2 months ago. As she spoke, she pushed away the magnifying glass on the table. Unexpectedly, the light refracted by the mirror was aimed at a piece of hemp rope that was about to be broken. Could it be that Grandma's premonition ability was passed on to her after she got cancer? As soon as Iris finished speaking, Iris smelled the smell of rivers and lakes. She immediately noticed the rope that was about to be disconnected, so she picked up the medicine bottle and smashed the open mirror. Iris was very used to fighting against death and didn't care about this episode. She took out a large book and prepared to give all the skills she had learned to her granddaughter Annie. When she heard this, she quickly refused. She didn't want to stay with this weird grandma. And the schoolwork cannot be left behind. Annie left the room after saying that. Iris wanted to chase him out, but stopped suddenly because the breath of death was coming towards her face. She had a premonition that if she took this step, what outcome will he face? But for the safety of his family, Iris still chases after him and gives all the compiled information to Ani. You still don't believe it. I believe it just by looking at it. Grandma used her own death to prove the legend about the god of death to Ani. Soon after, the family held a funeral for Iris. Darren, who had disappeared for a long time, finally appeared. Ani had not thought about how to face the mother who abandoned her and wanted to drive away without saying a word. Darling had already left home before his younger brother Charlie died, so he didn't quite understand his sister's mood and hoped that Ani could stay. And although Charlie didn't say it, in his opinion, his sister was no different. Charlie has rarely contacted her family since Annie went to college. Charlie thinks she is just like her mother back then. I'm not her. I'm not crazy. You're right. You just don't care. Barney ran home worried. He was worried that his grandmother's prophecy of death would really come, and other family members rarely reunited. He planned to have a meal together in the yard. The sharp juicer, broken glass, and the newly assembled simple Mars stove were full of potential safety hazards. At this time, my cousin cleaned up the broken cups at the counter and didn't notice that a piece of broken tea fell into the pile of ice cubes. My cousin put the unfinished beer casually next to the oven. The god of death has now revealed his fangs, but this group of people did not notice it. They only saw the broken glass poured into the soda cup along with the ice cubes. Now I don't know which unlucky guy it was given to. My cousin jumped happily on the trampoline. Little did he know that there was a nail tower with inverted stitches placed under the trampoline. At the same time, Ani couldn't help but look at her grandma's handwriting. The dense text and drawings inside had already foreseen this death party. As soon as he saw it, he quickly got in the car and kept calling his brother on the way. However, Charlie was really playing with springworms with his cousin and did not notice the call from his sister at all. At the critical moment, Darlene saw the nail tower under the trampoline and quickly called the two children to stop. Then she picked up the nail tower and put it against the wall. Unexpectedly, her aunt accidentally knocked off the wine bottle when she went to get the food. The bottle also broke open a machine connected to the hose, causing it to continue to expand and hit the farm tools on the wall. At this time, Ani finally arrived at the scene, and now the whole family is here. The uncle stepped on the sharp glass tee and jumped a few times before falling onto the grass. The rake accidentally hit the weeding gas and turned the uncle's head into pulp. So the family held a second funeral. Barney no longer doubted what his grandmother had said before he died and began to study the notebook with all his heart and told his family the whole incident. The reports and photos of the corpse compiled by his grandmother were actually the people on the patio observation deck. Although they escaped the fate of falling to death, they died in various bizarre and weird ways in the following days. And the order of these people's deaths was exactly the same as Iris' premonition. Everyone impatiently interrupted Ani. What does the death of the people at the viewing platform have to do with us? What Ani said next was horrifying. These people who were supposed to be dead have lived for many years and have families and descendants that they should not have. And the god of death will take back all the extra lives. That is, everyone present except Ani's father and aunt will face the threat of death, because they are lives that should not exist. The god of death will come to the door along each branch in order of age. Uncle Howard is the oldest, so the god of death will start from his house. The next one to suffer is the cousin, then the cousin, then the cousin. Finally, it is Darren's turn. People always try their best to deny the terrible truth. Everyone would rather believe that the uncle died in an accident than believe Ani's words, so they sell the family and get up and leave. They don't want to listen to these nonsense anymore. Even Darren came over to persuade Ani not to let Iris ruin your life. The scene turned to my cousin. He was a piercer. His father had just died, and he didn't delay his cousin from going to work. After seeing off the guests, he turned on the music loudly. He turned on the electric fan and disinfected the sugar coating with alcohol. I saw that the speaker kept vibrating and the ornaments on it were about to slip off. Fortunately, the photo of father and son on the phone's lock screen made my cousin a little sad. He switched to a slow song. The speaker finally stopped vibrating violently. My cousin took out a tattoo gun and gave himself a tattoo to commemorate the death of his father. Unexpectedly, he bumped into an alcohol barrel when he got up. He squatted on the ground to collect the glass fragments. Unexpectedly, the chain on one side of the ceiling fan fell off and accidentally hooked on his cousin's nose ring. The electric strip was constantly tightened by the rotating fan blades. My cousin was in a hurry and couldn't undo the buckle. He could only step on the high speed to relieve the pain. He never thought that the chair would hit the desk lamp and ignite the alcohol glass counter. The cousin would also crush it with his foot. When he finally untied the buckle, the fan fell completely. His cousin had fallen into a sea of fire and his screams resounded throughout the street. The next day, Annie couldn't contact her cousin and was very anxious. She hurriedly woke up Charlie and planned to go to where her cousin worked. On the way, Charlie received a text message and learned that there was a fire in the tattoo parlor, and was about to ask for details when she bumped into a man on the road. She looked closely and saw that this was her cousin. Thanks to the thick jacket she wore last night, she was not burned by the fire. She just happened to fall on the iron jewelry and leave a scar. She was showing off her invulnerability, and a car whizzed past behind her. Various signs made Ani more and more uneasy. She looked around and felt that there were safety risks everywhere. If anything goes wrong in any link, the cousin may be killed. But not only did the person involved not take it seriously, but he also deliberately made dangerous moves to scare Annie. Cousin and was also tired of these so-called curses of death, so she plugged in her headphones and prepared to go for a morning run. So please give us a hint and leave us alone, because death doesn't come for family. As soon as he finished speaking, my cousin was slapped in the face. The motorcycle driver did not notice the accident behind him and kept driving forward with his earphones on. At this moment, the inside of the carriage had already begun to compress garbage. It looked like my cousin was about to be involved. Annie quickly climbed onto the side of the car to catch his cousin. Charlie also blocked the road and blocked the driver. It's a pity that the king of hell wants you to die at the third watch. Who dares to keep you until the fifth watch? This accident finally broke the family member's luck, but Anne really couldn't figure out why the sequence she deduced was wrong. Aunt Wenyin confessed a secret. In fact, my cousin is not my uncle's biological son at all, so strictly speaking, my cousin has no blood relationship with Iris. This is why he can escape the punishment of death. The cousin ignored the quarrel between his mother and his brother because it was his turn soon. The cousin placed all his hopes on Ani because only the other party could understand the message left by Grandma, and suddenly remembered that the notes mentioned that a person had escaped the curse of death. There was no detailed introduction, but a key figure named William was mentioned. Darlene had heard her mother mention this good man before. If I remember correctly, William should be working at Westview Hospital, which is about an hour away from here. Without further ado, everyone decided to go find William. But her cousin refused to stay at home, so Anne and others had to take him on the road with fear. Although my cousin has not digested his own life experience, he is worried about letting his brother take risks alone. So he also gets into the RV and the group heads to the hospital. Darling finds that her mother's RV is covered with photos of her and her brother. Darling finally has the opportunity to explain her departure. In fact, like Iris, I could suddenly encounter the death of 2 children repeatedly. This ability made me tortured more and more. I could no longer control my temper and always got angry at the children for no reason. I slowly discovered that the eyes of my daughter looking at me were filled with fear. Dolly realized that sooner or later I would ruin the child's life just like Iris if I continued like this, so I chose to leave. But now I will accompany my daughter to get through the difficulties. Just after the words were finished, a few people arrived at Hope Hospital. My cousin couldn't help but be afraid when he passed through the revolving door. Fortunately, they found Aunt Wei easily. So who's next? This William is the youngest son of the singer. That night, he witnessed how Iris prevented the disaster. 2 years later, this beautiful woman came to help William see the truth about his mother's death. The two of them became friends, and together they discovered a way to escape from the death scythe. You can only choose between killing or being killed. If you take a life, you can gain the remaining time of that person. Of course, if you want to truly break this cycle, the only option is death. A long time ago, there was a young woman named Kimberly who found herself on the death list. When her heart stopped beating, doctors tried to save her. This method successfully broke the cycle. However, the success rate was so low that few people were so lucky. Now that I am seriously ill, I don't have much time left, and I don't want to meddle in these nosy matters anymore. I just advise everyone to enjoy the rest of their lives and not to make unnecessary resistance. My cousin is not willing to die at a young age. After all, William has lived for so many years before he has to go on the road. After discussing with his brother, he plans to take the risk of dying once. Although there is still the option of killing, the cousin does not want to sacrifice others to fulfill himself. It is too immoral to do so. Anyway, suspended animation is a technological innovation. My cousin happens to have a severe nut allergy, and an energy bar could kill him. The cousin carefully selected an energy bar that tasted good, but the vending machine accidentally got stuck. When the cousin saw the fire, he came out. The two fiddled around the machine dangerously and finally took out the energy bar. The cousin pushed the younger brother into a side room and went out to get something to prepare. I saw that the MRI machine was accidentally started and the lights turned on in the darkness. When Annie discovered that the two brothers were missing, she hurriedly looked for someone. After all, there are countless ways to die in the hospital, and there are visible and tangible dangers everywhere. On the other side, my cousin is eyeing a wheelchair and is about to lure it from the old lady's hands. The TV nearby is playing nuclear magnetic resonance precautions, reminding everyone to take off metal products to avoid being attracted by the powerful magnets in the equipment. The cousin pushed the wheelchair back and asked his younger brother to sit on it and eat an energy bar so that he could send the other person to the emergency room immediately. He also specially took away the younger brother's epinephrine syringe and watched the other person take a bite of chocolate. The next second, the cousin's throat swelled until he was unable to breathe. The instinct of survival made him grab the syringe. During the entanglement, the two hit a machine button, causing the power of the MRI machine to increase. The cousin's cell phone was sucked to the manual control button and the power limit was immediately released. Almost instantly, all the nails buried in the cousin's body tore the skin and were sucked into the machine. The wheelchair behind him also hit him, and he rushed to the MRI machine with his cousin, only to see the metal tube of the wheelchair piercing his belly, which resulted in the most tragic death in the film. The cousin desperately crawled over and took the epinephrine syringe and injected it into his thigh. The nurse outside the door noticed that all the metal objects were sliding towards the MRI room. He hurriedly got up and went to check the situation. Unexpectedly, the moment he opened the door, the loose vending machine spring penetrated his cousin's head like lightning. Not only did this rescue operation fail, but it also cost the cousin's life. Now that the uncle's branch is dead, it will be the turn of the Dolan family. The only safe place now is Grandma's house. After all, she has been hiding there for 20 years without leaving the house. So Darlene decided to live in Iris's old house. As long as she never comes out to protect herself, the bad luck will not befall the two children for the time being. But Annie felt that the god of death would know half of the child halfway, so she decided to go there with her mother. The three of them hugged each other and encouraged each other. They didn't notice that a coin fell from Annie's bag and was picked up by an old lady and stuffed into the bag. In order to prevent a car accident on the road, Annie took over the role of driver for her mother. In the middle of the night, they finally arrived at Grandma's house, but it was full of agencies and dangers. Annie didn't dare to let her mother get out of the car, so she stepped on the accelerator and crashed into the RV. The RV successfully drove to the door, but Annie's seatbelt got stuck. She asked her brother to take her mother into the house first. Anyway, as long as she took care of safety, nothing would happen to Annie even if she was trapped in the car. Little did they know that the impact just now caused sparks to fly out of the roof wires, and the hemp rope flower pot that was about to break finally failed to hold up and open the gas. The moment Darlene opened the door, a small spark floated into the room and instantly detonated the wire. A huge explosion shot straight into the night sky. The RV was also hit by a nearby beach. Annie was trapped in the water because of her seatbelt, unable to escape, only one step away from suffocation. On the other side, Charlie was also hit by a broken building. The telephone pole on the side was about to collapse. Upon seeing this, Darren quickly came over to remove the heavy objects to save people and asked his son to help Annie quickly. Charlie had no time to grieve, so he quickly opened the roof cover of the car and jumped in to save his sister. He found a folding knife in the car and wanted to help his sister cut the seatbelt. However, Annie struggled wildly due to her survival instinct and accidentally knocked off the knife. Charlie had no choice but to dive into the water to pick up the knife. Unexpectedly, the blade cut deeply into his finger. He endured the severe pain and continued to help his sister cut her seatbelt. Unexpectedly, Annie gradually lost her breath. Fortunately, Charlie hurriedly performed first aid and actually rescued his sister. The death cycle was finally cut off, and they returned to a peaceful life. This day was Charlie's graduation ceremony. The family accompanied him to the party, and the old woman who picked up the coin was. While shopping at a nearby roadside stall, my sister scratched out a coin from her wallet and got stuck in the groove of the railroad track. The scene changed, and the neighbor doctor came over to say hello and praised Charlie for his feat of saving his sister. An ominous premonition hit Annie, and she quickly dragged her brother away and ran away. The train was rushing over with a devastating force because the coin was out of control. At those moments, Annie fell to the ground. Fortunately, the train passed by the ground buffer and barely stopped. However, before the two of them could breathe a sigh of relief, a few broken wooden stakes came crashing down on them. The two siblings were smashed to pieces, and the film ended here. The shock that the god of death and travel notes came to the moviegoers on the day he was born was not a ghost, but a sense of fear that came from the unknown. It was really creepy and left a lingering fear in the heart. In its sixth installment, this series has delivered a satisfying masterpiece full of blood and blood. The methods of death are also diverse, and the essence of the film has been implemented from beginning to end. If the King of Hell wants you to die in the third update, who dares to keep you until the fifth update? The thrilling visual experience does not forget to tell the mystery of fatalism. All in all, it is a very enjoyable horror film.